Basically, today we're going to look at the working environment and then some basic tools. And by the end of this, we should be able to try those tools out. So it's going to be a very simple, easy class, and that's how we're going to try to keep all the other classes very simple and easy. The goal is not to make anybody an expert at this, because I mean it will take quite a lot of time and a lot of practice to become an expert, to know how to use every single tool and to do everything in CorelDraw.
Sure.
But at least with a good introduction and a firm foundation, you should be able to do a lot of stuff. Okay. So let's go.
All right.
So basically, when you start the program, you should end up with a screen looking very similar to mine. Yeah, and basically it's the welcome screen, or it's called the welcome screen. And here, this is where you sort of set up your working surface, or your working your starting surface. You can simply do that by clicking New Document, and it's going to give you a blank sheet. It would sort of ask you to set up or to choose a paper size and all of that. You could also start from a template, and these are templates that are that people have made, that are built into the tool. They are actually accessed online, and in order to use these templates, you need to create a profile on CorelDraw, on the CorelDraw website, and then that would allow you to use those templates. And underneath that, you can see a list of recently accessed files or recently created documents, which is quite similar to what you would see on many software. Yeah. So basically, that's what we'll be looking at today. And on the left-hand side, on the extreme left, where my mouse is pointing at or to, we have the various tools. And for now, they are all disabled because, of course, we haven't created our document yet. So there's really nothing we can do with them. So let's proceed to create a new document, and then we'll be able to try out these tools. And as I said, for the first portion of this training, let's say about 15 to 20 minutes, it's just going to be me demonstrating. Then after that, we'll have a live session where you will try your hands at things. So I'll click New Document. And it gives me a window in which I'm going to specify the document properties. Yeah, so you can give your document a name or a title at this moment or at this point, but it's not absolutely necessary. You could do that after you actually create the document and save it, because even giving it a name here doesn't mean it's sort of saved. Yeah, but at least it gives you a head start. Then you need to specify your size. Now, when you click the drop down, you can see various sizes or standard paper sizes, if I can call it that. A4 is what we are much familiar with. Exactly. And in North America, they use the letter, which is slightly different from A4. And if you are familiar with paper sizes, you know that A4 is actually twice the size of A5. And then A3 is twice the size of A4. A2 is twice the size of A3, and A1 is twice the size of A2. So that's how it works. Yeah. So when you start from A1, you divide it into 2, you have A2. And then you divide A2 into 2, you have A3. You do the same. Yeah. That's how it works. And then there are various others here too. And yeah, so for now, let's work with. But of course, we can also set our own dimensions. And in computer graphics, usually we have things measured in pixels, and
Yeah.
pixels basically are the dots that are on our screen,
Sure.
and they are so tiny you can't actually see them.
Yeah.
But that's how it is. You can also specify your measurement unit in millimeters, inches, and so on and so forth. So assuming you're designing a banner or a signboard, for example, where you're going to print and mount it physically, you'd probably be more comfortable working with feet or inches or meters. So you could actually set that in the tool or in the software and work with that so that your output is just the size you want it. And that is also very important because it affects the quality of the graphics you wanna have as your output.
Okay.
If let's say you want to print a banner that's going to be mounted at a program, and the size you want is, let's say, 2 meters by 1 meter, right? Technically, you could design a banner of almost any size, maybe 10 centimeters by 5 centimeters. That'll be really small, and then
Yeah.
blow it up to fill that space, right?
Okay.
But when you do it that way, the the quality of graphics is going to be very, very, very poor because you are expanding a very small image onto a very large surface.
Hello?
Yeah, hello.
Okay. There was some noise,
Yeah.
there was some feedback. Okay. But I think Suraj just called in.
Yeah.
I want to ask a question.
Okay.
Yes,
Is
please
that
go
Suraj?
ahead.
Oh, okay.
Yes, Siraj, go ahead.
To be more practical, the ones that you share on the WhatsApp, what size?
Yeah. Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, the ones that you share on the WhatsApp, what size do you use?
Okay. The ones that I use on WhatsApp, I use A5.
Oh, okay. So that is half of A4.
That is half of A4. And
Okay.
although those posters are not meant to be printed, I work with A5 because at the end of the day, if you have a large graphic and you shrink it down into a smaller size, you don't lose
Yeah.
much in terms of the graphic
Sure.
quality.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, you have to also bear in mind that your fonts or the characters need to be large enough so that when you shrink it, they are still visible.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the main consideration. So I usually work with A5 size. Yeah. But for today's exercise, we're going to work with 400 by 400 pixels because
Okay.
that's the size of the exercise that we have. Today's
Okay.
class exercise. So 400 width, 400 height, and we just say, okay, there are other details here that we would visit during subsequent classes, and we'll explain what each of them is. So we say, okay, and we can see a box in the middle of our screen. So that's the 400 width, 400 length.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and you can zoom in and out if you want to make it bigger or work on very, very fine details. You can zoom in and do your work there. So, the first tool we are going to work with is the pick tool, which is the default tool that you get enabled when you start when you create your document, and it's the standard arrow that we see on when we are working with most other software or tools.
Yeah.
And as its name connotes, it allows you to pick items. So you click, you pick, you drag, and you sort of highlight to select objects on your working surface. Yeah. So that's what the pick tool does. And before I go further, let me show you something which is called we have dockers on the right here, and you should be able to see that they are called dockers, and one of them. Yes. You have a question?
Oh, come on, continue.
Okay. So on the right here we have the dockers, and I think the first one you should see is called hints, but on mine I've sort of rearranged them. And here, I mean, this is where you access all the tips you need when working with a tool. So you can always be looking here for additional information. And you also realize that when you click a tool, it gives you hints regarding that tool. So if you're not sure what it really does, this is a good place to look at to give you more information about that tool. Yeah. So don't forget that. Then we have the object manager, which should be the second Docker you'd have on your screen, and that shows you all the objects that would be on your working surface, or here as it's called, your layer, and that's in red. So for now, there's no object on our layer, and therefore it's just the layer name, layer 1, and we can rename this if we want. We just right click and rename it. So yeah. So let's place an object onto our screen, and we'll see how things change. I'm going to place a rectangle onto the screen, and we're going to fill it with color and see how things turn up. So I select the rectangle tool, and there's a shortcut for that, which is F6 on your keyboard, but you don't have to necessarily be familiar with it. As you use it more and more, some of these shortcuts would stick. So I just click and drag to create my rectangle or my square, and as you can see, I mean, as I move the mouse around, the shape changes. Now if I want to have a perfect square, then I press the Control key on my keyboard, and that gives me a perfect square. Now if I want the object to be centered where I start off, so I start clicking here where my mouse is right now. I'm going to create another box. Now if I want the box to be centered on that point, then I press the Shift key and start drawing from that point, and you can see it's centered around where I started off. If I add the control, then I'm creating a square centered from where I started. So Shift plus Control gives you a square that is centered from where you start off. Okay. So, and you can see that now we have two rectangles on our layer. When you look at the object manager, you can see two objects. Now, at this stage, we probably would want to do some magic to our rectangles or to our square, and we can do this. I mean, we can do several things with this. Up here, where you can see me pointing to, there are various properties for the box or the object that is currently selected, and you can see it's the square box in the middle of the worksheet, and we know that is selected because it has the sort of markers around the edge, and it's also highlighted in the object manager. So it shows that whatever we do up here is going to affect this particular box. So let's say we want to make the corners curved instead of squared. We do that by clicking this this icon, and then we set the radius that we want to apply to the corners. And you can see there are 4 of them here, so 1 for each corner. But this tool here in the middle there looks like a lock or a padlock. When it's selected as it is now, what it means is that when you change one corner, it affects all the corners, so it applies to all the corners. We can unselect it, and that would allow us to set different radii for each corner. But for now, we'll just make sure it's selected, and we'll give each corner 10 pixels. So I just type 10 and press enter, and you can see the corners of our square are rounded now, all by a radius of 10 pixels. Okay, so that's that. The width or the thickness of the outline is specified by this drop down box, and right now it's 2 pixels. It appears very thick because I've zoomed into the worksheet. Now if I zoom out, and you can see the zooming up here changing, it's now 200%. If I zoom out further, we have 100%. So this is the actual size exactly of the image or the artwork that I'm creating, and it has a border thickness of 2 pixels. I could make that thinner, and the thinnest you can get is hairline, and I set it to 1, and you can see immediately it's become much thinner than that. And let me set it to hairline, and it's even much thinner. When I zoom in, you can see it's almost not there. And similarly, I could give it like 8 pixels, and that's really thick. Now, all the things that we are doing here, we could actually do it while working with the pick tool also. So after having created the rectangle, we could switch to the pick tool and do everything we are doing right now. So you can see our box in the middle there. Now let's say we want to change the color of the border, right? We can see our sort of palette, or our color palette down here. Now to change the color of the border, make sure your object is selected. So that's one of the rules you should always bear in mind with CorelDraw. Before you do anything to an object, make sure that object is selected, otherwise it will not apply to that object. So we make sure it's selected, then we right click. So I want to make the border red, and to do that I right click the color red, and you can see immediately it has changed the color of the border. Now if I want to fill the content of the box with a different color, let's say yellow, I just click. So that's the left click, or what we will call the normal click by the left click, and that would fill the area with the color yellow. And similarly, I could apply the same color to the border, and that would work too, right? So, but let me make it red. So this is one way of hiding a border of your object that you draw. You apply the same fill color to the border. Alternatively, I could change the outline width or the thickness of the border to none, and it's gone. So that's our object. Now there are other ways of filling our objects, and in subsequent classes I'll show you. One of the ways is to use the fill tool down here, and we can use that also in conjunction with the eyedropper tool. So the eyedropper tool allows us to pick color from one object and use that to fill something else. So maybe I should demonstrate that. So let's say there's an image. Let's say with our exercise, right? I could do that right now. So I could bring that image, which is the PNG, not the CorelDraw one. I could open that one also. But maybe you found an image online, you like the colors, and you want to use those colors in your design. You could simply import that image into your workspace and pick the colors from that. And there are several ways of doing that. One of them is to just click and drag the image onto your workspace, and that's it. It's there. Alternatively, you could go to File and select Import. Then you can pick the object from wherever it's located. But for now, we'll just do the easy one. We click and drag. And let's say I want this green for my box. One of the ways of doing that, or the easiest way to do that, is to use the eyedropper tool. So I click that, and you can see the icon has changed. And then I left click again, the color, and you can see it's telling me it has selected this color, this particular green. And immediately it selects the color, the icon changes to the fill bucket tool, and you can see that up here. You could switch back to eyedropper if you mistakenly picked the wrong color, or proceed with the fill bucket tool. And you can see there's a little symbol underneath the fill bucket that tells us that we cannot fill the area where the fill bucket is currently located. We cannot fill, but once it gets on top of the box or on top of an object that it can apply to, it will change. And you can see that now. Once it gets on top of the square, the box, it changes, and you can see the color that it will apply if we were to click there. And similarly, the same thing applies to this particular box too. So let's change it to green, and we have the same shade of green as we had in the image we imported. Now, there are two ways of filling, or we can fill both the content and the outline of an object. Now, as the icon shows right now with the little green box underneath it, it tells us that it is going to fill the content area of the box green. Now, if we want to just change the outline and not the content, we need to bring the fill bucket onto the outline, and you can see that the little box now changes a bit. Yeah, and when we click now at this point, we only change the color of the outline and not the content. So you can note, let's take notice of that. You can see how the icon changes. So so far we've looked at the pick tool, and we've looked at the rectangle tool. Now basically everything that we can do with the rectangle tool, we could also do with the ellipse tool and with the polygon tool also. These are all tools that are used to draw, the respective shapes. And one of the things you should also notice is that when you see this little tiny black triangle next to a tool, it means there are other related tools there. So when you click the tiny black triangle, you see other related tools. So rectangle is the default one, where we have the 3-point rectangle, where it allows you to click sort of 3 points on your workspace, and it creates a rectangle that matches those locations. Similarly, we have the 3-point ellipse tool. You click 3 points, and then it creates a circle or an ellipse around that. And then for polygon, we have different types of polygons. So star, complex star, graph paper, and various other shapes. So you have more shapes you can work with under that. Now, another thing for for you to note is that we can stretch or change the dimensions of an object. That's how we've created that object, and we do that simply by clicking and dragging the corner handlers or the holders. We just click and drag, and that can help us change the size. We could also change how the size changes. Just as with the creation of the rectangle, if you simply click and drag, it sort of drags in the direction or expands in the direction where your mouse goes. But if you want to expand the object around the center of that object, then you make sure you press the shift key along with that, and then it expands around the center. The next tool we're going to look at, so we've done the pick tool. Yes.
Can I just...
Yeah. You have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah. When you were changing the shape of the object, when I looked up, just below the menu key, inside when we're zooming the object, so when we zoom to 400% earlier, but I realized that this one, when we were doing this one, the I don't know how to put it. The zoom, percentage didn't change at all. Why is this?
Yeah. Okay. So, what the zoom in does, and if you can see from the screen where my mouse is hovering around right now, the zoom in affects the entire worksheet. The zoom in affects the entire worksheet, and it doesn't change the size of the object. It only allows you to look either closer into the object or look at it from afar. So you have a general overview of that, and you can do that simply by scrolling your mouse. So you can see that, or you can select a zoom size from the list, from the drop down. Now, that is different from changing the actual size of the object. When we are doing that, you realize the workspace or the worksheet remains the same. However, the size of the object changes. So we can see that now our object is actually bigger than the worksheet.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the difference. And I forgot to mention also, if let's say you want to have the box exactly matching the dimensions of your worksheet, there's one easy way to do that. It's simply to double click the rectangle. So I double click the rectangle, and you can see it's created a box that matches the size of the worksheet. Yeah, and I can do the same thing, everything I did to the previous box. I can give it a fill. No, that's not my computer.
Hello? It's a message.
No, that's my phone. It's my phone. This one.
Okay, is it possible to mute it? Okay.
No, I've. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Yeah. So we just created the box that matches the size of the worksheet.
Okay.
By double clicking the rectangle tool, and we can apply. So let me move this box out and move this one too out. So this is the only thing on our worksheet, and we can apply the same colors to it. So we use the color dropper tool, and we fill that, and then we fill the border also, and we have that. So let me delete these objects, that one and that one. So you can see right now we only have two objects on our layer. One is the bitmap, which is what I imported, the image, and the second one is the rectangle I created. Okay. I was saying that we've talked about the pick tool, we've talked about the shape tools. Now, we've also talked about the fill tool. Now, we only have two tools to look at, the line tools and the text tool. Now, the line tools are all stacked together under this tool. So it starts with the Bezier. I don't know if that's the correct way to pronounce it. Then we have a freehand 2-point line tool, the pen, B-shape, B-spline, polyline, 3-point curve, and so on. So these are all various ways of drawing lines and curves. And for today's lesson, I'm going to take you through just two of them, the freehand and the pen tool. And we'll see how similar or different they are. And remember, as I said all the time, you can always have your hint Docker displayed. So when you select a tool, it gives you an idea of what the tool can do and how to use that tool. So basically with the freehand tool, you can just draw anything you want and it gives you that. And just as we did with the rectangle tool, we can set the width or the thickness of the line. So if we set it to 8, you can see we have a thicker line. And we can actually go further to indicate what type of line it is, whether it's dotted or dashed. And even with dotted and dashed, we can have various versions of those. So if you select a funny one, it gives you something funny. Select a dotted one, it gives you dotted. And we can change the thickness at any point we want. So this looks like a group of ants that are marching somewhere. And we can set the end of the line. So we can give the ends arrows. So I put an arrow on one end. I could just leave it blank and put the arrow on the opposite end. If I want, I'll do various, and you can see some of them actually look quite funny. So that is that. Now, we can also change the color. So I can either maintain the freehand tool, or I can switch back to the pick tool. I usually prefer switching back to the pick tool when changing the properties of an object. I could change the color of the line, just as we did with the rectangle or the square. I right click and it changes, but because this is just a line, we cannot really fill it. So if I do the left click, nothing happens because it's not a closed shape. This is an open shape. So we cannot fill it. We can only change the color of the line. Now, I'm going back to the freehand tool and I'm going to show you something else. Now, let's say we want to draw a straight line. We could also do that with the freehand tool. We simply click. We click and we don't click and hold. So we click and leave it. It creates an anchor on a point, and then we click where we want it to end. Then it creates a straight line for us. Now, so we could do it in so many different ways. But let's say we want a perfect horizontal line. How do we do that? We click, then we press the Control key, and that forces it to draw either a horizontal line or change at fixed degrees. So this, I think, should be about 30 degrees or so. This is about 45. And then it goes all the way. You can have a perfect vertical line also. So your Control key is very useful in getting straight lines and lines at various angles. So that's the freehand tool. It's used for drawing lines, or lines. You could draw either straight or curved lines, but freely. Now, how does this differ from the pen tool? So let me, okay, I'll just work on the side. Now remember, this green box is covering our worksheet, so let's just remember that. Now, the pen tool, it works slightly differently from our free line tool. Now you can see when I click and try to drag, what it does, it creates some arrows. Now, why these arrows? These arrows are used to create a curve. So, but let's start with a simple thing. So similarly, just as with the freehand tool, I click one point, then I click another point, it gives me a line. But unlike the freehand tool, this one keeps going. So you can keep going, you can create any shape you want, zigzag. It doesn't stop there. If you want it to stop, then what you can do is to press the escape key on your keyboard, or you press the space key, then it stops there. So that's one thing about the pen tool. If you want to draw a perfect horizontal or vertical line, you could, just as with the freehand tool, you click, then you press your shift key instead of control. For the freehand, we would press control, but with the pen tool, we press shift, and that will give us a perfect straight line.
Okay.
And that it goes on like that. And if you want to stop, as I said, you either press the escape key or the space key. Another way to stop is to double click, then it stops there. So that's the pen tool. And now we're going to try to draw an arc or a curve with the pen tool. And as I said, we'll do it the crude way. It may not be a perfect arc. If you want to have a perfect arc, it will be good to work with guidelines, and we'll treat guidelines during our next class. So this is just going to be a crude one. So I click, I drag a bit, it sort of gives me these arrows that would help me shape up my curve. Then I click my next point, and then I drag similarly, and you can see it is giving me a curve. And then I click and drag again, and I press escape. Now I have some sort of curve, right? And it's looking curve, but it's not very perfect, although the second part looks a bit close. Now even this I could edit, and if I want to edit this curve to be more perfect, then I need to use the shape tool. The shape tool. And what the shape tool allows us to do is to hold on to nodes. So those points where I sort of changed direction, those points are called nodes. You can add more nodes to your shape, or just use,
Hello. Alaikum.
Yep. Well,
Good. What's the estimated time of closure? When are we closing? If there's more time, then why don't we have 5-10 minutes break for Salat and then come back?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was actually trying to round up. This is probably the last two we'll handle.
So how many minutes? You think 5 minutes, 10 minutes, then we can wait?
Less than 5.
Okay,
Less than
then
5. Okay. So when you click the node, you can see the arrows showing, and as you drag the arrows back and forth, you see the shape changing, and you can do all sorts of things with that. So basically, that's the
Oh, we are having some feedback from you.
Really? No, it's not from my end.
No, it's like your voice is. I don't know if it's coming from me or.
No,
I
it's
don't get
not
any
from my.
feedback here.
Yeah, I think someone is connected on more than one device, and
Exactly. So that person should off one
mute
or
one of the
mute them.
devices. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Is it better now?
Yeah, you can continue.
Okay. So, let me see. Oh, we had the text too, but no worries. I think we'll stop here. So basically, that's it for today, and um, we can take the break, or you can try your hands at the exercise and probably contact me privately if you have any problems. What do you think?
Or we can still discuss the issues in CorelDraw group.
Yeah, yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Mm.
Yes, we can. And yeah, and hopefully next week we'll continue. I hope we'll be able to start early so that we can cover a lot.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah,
Inshallah.
yeah.
Okay. I think this is a very good start. Alhamdulillah, and then we thank Allah for time, age, and of us to those who are
Siraj,
and make
your line is breaking.
well. Is that okay now?
No, it keeps
Yeah,
breaking.
we still
Yeah.
have the feedback in there.
Away from internet connectivity. Close to me.
Okay,
Tell me why. Are you not using your
okay,
self line?
thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, you can just post it onto the group, and then we'll pick it up from there. Yeah,
Tell
I
me,
think the
is
feedback. What?
it better? Can you hear me now?
I
Still
can hear
breaking.
Yeah, I
you,
can
but
hear
then
you, but
it breaks.
Okay, that's okay. I think
For Malik, I can hear Malik without any interruption.
yeah.
But
That's okay.
That's okay. Oh, okay.
okay. So
Mm.
thank you, and inshallah we'll pick it up from here.
Sure.
Okay. Now, so
Okay.
That
Assalamu
was a nice
alaikum.
session.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm sure now, like you mentioned, no, it's all about practice now. So
Yeah.
the more we practice, and we'll get used to the, all the tools and some of the shortcut keys and all of those things.
Yeah.
But I think there was something about assignments, right? You said it was on the link that you shared, right?
Yes, it's on the link. So you see a folder called class one,
Okay.
and there are some files in there.
Okay.
And the
Where
idea
did you
is
share
that
the link?
it's on the new group, the CorelDraw group.
The WhatsApp group.
Yeah, I can share the link again after we sign off.
Okay.
But it's basically the same place where you downloaded the other stuff.
The application itself. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So just try to do what the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you for your time, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you too.
Okay.
Inshallah,
Assalamu
we
alaikum.
hope that by the time we meet again next week on this platform, we'll be doing much more than what you just taught us.
Yeah. Hopefully, inshallah.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay. You're welcome. Barakallah.
I'm getting out of my car now.
Oh, sorry.
I have to get uninterrupted.
Good reception,
I have
yeah.
to come outside exactly to get uninterrupted, reception. So far, so
Yeah.
good. Yeah. Okay. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
label them.